wasn't sure there was going to be a sparring match agreement that we'll spar for a while. I wasn't sure. I was honest about it. That's why he said it's going to go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was an understanding that, we'll play a little bit and then we'll get a little more and, whatever. So that was part of it.
Jake has had double jaw surgery, 4 plates, 8 screws in his, and everybody is just kind of breezing past that like it's no big deal. But I'm looking further into this because that's no easy surgery, and I'm starting to ask the question, is this the beginning of the end of Jake Paul's boxing career?
As his brother, I was just shocked. I'm in the hospital with the guy, and he's like, yo, can you make this TikTok? Can you film this for me? He's like laughing and having a good time.
Having the agenda against Anthony Joshua, because it feels to me like that fight, I before the fight, I was refusing to accept the principle that this fight could be scripted.
The boxing community exploded with outrage following Anthony Joshua's fight with Jake Paul, with some fans and commentators going as far as calling for extreme consequences over the damage inflicted in the ring. The reaction intensified after reports emerged that Jake suffered serious injuries, including a fractured jaw that required surgical intervention. Critics pointed to what they viewed as a dangerous mismatch, arguing that Joshua's size, power, and intensity pushed the fight beyond acceptable safety limits. The severity of the injuries stunned both viewers and industry professionals, reigniting heated discussions about fighter welfare, responsible matchmaking, and where the line should be drawn in high-profile crossover events.
Away from the power, you could call it running, and you'll be right. You can also say it's smart for a guy Jake's size and understanding that AJ is a fucking monster. It's also smart to fight that way. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing. It was not.
Analysts Brian Campbell and Shaquille Majuri examined Jake Paul's bout with Anthony Joshua, breaking down both the tactical approach and the physical consequences of the fight. They pointed out that Joshua's power caused substantial damage, including impact severe enough to later require jaw surgery. To manage the threat, Paul leaned heavily on footwork and lateral movement, constantly circling to avoid being cornered or trapped along the ropes. Although the strategy lacked sustained offense, it helped him last longer than many had anticipated against such a powerful opponent. Campbell and Majuri noted that this emphasis on positioning and movement helped Paul conserve energy and limit further punishment, even as Joshua's strength still produced visible damage. Their analysis highlighted how defensive preparation can extend survival in the ring, while also reinforcing the inherent dangers of high-profile matchups where the skill and physical gap is significant.
Could this be the end for him in terms of what he's doing in the boxing ring?
Listen, so long as people will tune in and so long as Jake Paul is paid by Netflix or any broadcaster to air his fights, we're going to see this continue. And Jake Paul knows his business model, right? Now, this deviated, this AJ fight, which came together kind of last minute after the Tank Davis fight fell apart. But we know Jake Paul's MO here. It's find the most popular guy with the most physical disadvantages for me to fight. And Jake Paul has the benefit that he's turned himself into a villain, or in the pro wrestling circles, a heel. People tune in to watch. We did not tune into this fight to see competitive boxing. Most of us tuned in because we thought, here's Anthony Joshua. Here's a 2-time unified heavyweight champion, a guy who physically just overwhelms Jake Paul. And we're finally going to get what Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva, Nate Diaz were not physically fit, whether it be through their size, experience, or age to do, and that is knock out Jake Paul. And so because I don't really feel like we got that satisfying comeuppance that a lot of people have been waiting for, it kind of gives Jake Paul a little bit of mystique, I'd almost say, to still try and string this along. Now, I don't know in terms, he says he wants to be cruiserweight champion. I'm not quite sure what the competitive road there is, because let's make no mistake, the reason this fight lasted as long as it did is because Jake Paul focused exclusively on being elusive. He did his best, and kudos to him, right? He did a great job of not getting cornered. He was always on the gas until the gas sort of fell out from underneath him. And so I don't quite know, short of leveraging his popularity, how he's going to get to that title shot. if he's not actually going to fight, like really fight an elite boxer. But if he's looking to make money, there's the KSI fight out there. There's the Tommy Fury rematch. There is ways for Jake Paul to
Former UFC champion Michael Bisping offered a blunt reaction to Jake Paul's loss against Anthony Joshua, labeling the performance a clear demonstration of true professional boxing. He stressed how vastly overmatched Paul appeared, pointing to the accuracy, timing, and sheer force behind Joshua's punches. According to Bisping, Joshua's combinations, especially his uppercuts, left Paul boxed in with little opportunity to escape, revealing major gaps in his defensive awareness and overall game plan. He explained that the serious damage Paul suffered, including a broken jaw, stemmed from stepping in with a fighter who was not only larger and stronger, but also operating an elite technical level Paul had never previously faced. Bisping added that confidence and promotional bravado offer no protection against the realities of elite competition. While Paul managed to last through multiple rounds, Joshua's control and dominance highlighted the stark difference between world-class professionals and crossover fighters. In the end, Bisping described the bout as a harsh but important reminder of what respect, preparation, and skill truly mean in boxing.
In my humble opinion, because I'm a big Anthony Joshua fan. Of course, I've been a supporter for the longest time. A rather lackluster, unmotivated Anthony Joshua that didn't look like he was being particularly nasty, right? Yeah, a lot of the time he was out of range, and okay, it is hard to land a shot on someone that's backing up and moving away the whole time. And there was a lot of times where he had him in the corner and he could have thrown a shot. And sometimes he was telegraphing his shots. And anytime he did go in to throw a punch, as I said before, Jake Paul would shoot in and turn it into a wrestling match. And even when he wasn't shooting in, he was clinching a lot. This is boxing, it's not MMA as we know. The referee should have done a much better job of getting in there and separating them much faster. As I say, it was the 6th round. I think it was the 4th round he got dropped twice. In the 5th round he got through it. In the 6th round, caught him with the jab, a glancing right hook. He goes down, and that was that. That was all she wrote, right? I did a live. There was about 9,000 people watching at one point. Nobody was particularly enjoying the matchup. Listen, okay? I respect both men. I respect anyone really that steps into the ring, okay? And certainly going up against Anthony Joshua, that was a tall task, okay? You know, metaphorically and figuratively, right? It was a tall task. It was a big job. It was a tough opponent. It was a mismatch, and it was, right? Jake Paul never worried Anthony Joshua once. He never rung his bell. He never caused any damage. He never had him worried. He never did anything. It wasn't a fight. It was a display of how long can Jake Paul last? Can he run away long enough to...
Following the massive showdown between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, reports indicated that both fighters were set to receive purses in the same elite range, placing the event among the most lucrative boxing matches ever streamed worldwide. But the headline figures didn't tell the full story, especially for Joshua. As a UK resident competing on US soil, he faces taxation from multiple jurisdictions, including US federal taxes and additional international obligations back home. Once those deductions are applied, a significant portion of his earnings is expected to be absorbed by taxes, dramatically reducing his final take-home amount. By contrast, Jake Paul, who is based in the United States, does not face the same cross-border tax complications, allowing him to retain a much larger share of his purse despite the loss. The situation underscores how international tax laws can heavily reshape the real financial outcome of blockbuster fights, and serves as a reminder that announced payouts often look very different once the money is actually collected.
Has to pay, as you see here, a whopping $43 million. $43 million of his $92 million purse. That means Anthony Joshua was left with $49 million. Right? Now, he also has to pay, I believe, 10% of that To his promoter, Matchroom CEO and promoter Eddie Hearn.
Dominic Engel delivered a blunt assessment of Jake Paul's bout with Anthony Joshua, focusing on both the approach and the reality of the fight. He explained that Paul's game plan centered on minimizing exchanges rather than standing his ground, which made it harder for Joshua to trap him and fully open up. Although Paul absorbed a clean right hand, he showed toughness by taking it without visibly panicking. Engel also noted that Joshua never needed to operate at maximum intensity, pointing out that there was little incentive to overextend himself in a relatively short fight. Given the difference in experience and level, Joshua was able to maintain control without unleashing a sustained assault. Engel drew a comparison to other elite fighters, like Tyson Fury, explaining that top-level boxers don't always look spectacular when facing certain opponents. They often fight only as hard as the situation requires. While Paul clearly felt the cleaner shots Joshua landed, Engel concluded that Paul was largely able to manage the danger, showcasing solid defensive awareness within a fight that remained measured and controlled rather than all out.
In a stand and fight, and AJ is not the best at closing people off, and it's hard chasing somebody down who don't want to engage, and then he tagged him every now and again. So
does it look bad on him because there was one right hook that he took was a serious shot, but obviously he didn't flinch from it, but the fact
not really, because you'll take into consideration that you can get, there will be, look, there'll be no way. Well, Anthony Joshua thought, if he hits me, there's a possibility he's going to hurt me. I felt a couple of shots early on in the fight. There's no way Jake Paul at the level he's at, and who he's boxed and what he's done, that he's, you know, and it's like AJ, like you say, he's got to have completely gone and be punch drunk for Jake Paul to beat him. After the last fight against Dubois, people think, well, his jaw's gone there, he can't take a shot. Of course he can take a shot. And it's weighing up the opposition, and he weighed up the opposition, and he's not going to be training like he trained for Usyk or for the big fights. He won't do that because they can't get motivated enough to do it. They'll do enough to do the rounds. What was it, an 8-rounder?
Yeah.
So, same again. So he did enough. He never looked in any trouble. It didn't look great, you know, but Tyson Fury didn't look great against Ngannou, did he? But who did he box after Ngannou?
Usyk.
Exactly. Yeah. But you would have never thought, looking at the performance against Ngannou with Tyson, you would never have thought that he put in the performance he did against Usyk.
So you think it's more of a case of you kind of, no matter how good you are and how much you train, if the opposition isn't great, you sometimes
you're going to box at the level of the opponent because the opponent makes you fight at that level.
That's quite a fair.
So, but when AJ did do what he got to and manages to land.
He emphasized that lasting in the ring against a fighter of Joshua's level demanded real toughness and mental strength, serving as a sobering reminder of how dangerous boxing can be at the elite level. The fight underscored that confidence and promotion alone are no substitute for experience against top-tier opposition. In the aftermath, emotion spilled over when Jake Paul's mother drew widespread attention for her heated reaction to the bout. Speaking out publicly, she expressed anger toward promoter Eddie Hearn, criticizing his demeanor while Jake was taking heavy punishment, and questioned why the fight wasn't stopped sooner. She also directed frustration toward Anthony Joshua, arguing that her son absorbed more damage than necessary. While many fans and analysts viewed her response as extreme, others acknowledged it came from a place of fear and protectiveness, highlighting the very real safety concerns that arise when fighters face overwhelming power at the highest level of the sport.
Eddie Hearn, for instance. Yeah.
Why? Why Eddie Hearn?
Because I don't like his smug face.
You don't like his smug face?
No. Literally thinks he's better than everybody in the world.
Shit-eating grin. I said the exact. Bro,
Jake's over there, like, you know, struggling, and he's sitting over there smiling like the cat who swallowed the canary. Guess what? Did he fucking get in the ring?
Do you think he was happy with what happened to Jake?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God.
Now, this is coming from a mother, too, guys. So I just want y'all to understand. This is a mom. But at the end of the day, it's his job to laugh. Because, hell, I was laughing at Jake Paul. I can't even lie. I'm not a big Jake Paul fan. But, you know, part of the process. We got to report on this stuff. But Mama Paul, hella mad.
God, and that's sickening to me. It's sick. I don't like it. Even Anthony Joshua had some class and, you know, apologized to me.
Did he really?
Yeah. He worked his way through the crowd and came up to me and said, "Mom, just know it's just boxing.
He says it's the fight.
After the fight, attention briefly shifted to Logan Paul, who was seen engaging Anthony Joshua in a tense moment outside the ring that many interpreted as confrontational. At the same time, footage emerged of Jake Paul recovering in the hospital, clearly in discomfort as he dealt with the aftermath of a punishing stoppage that resulted in a fractured jaw. The stark contrast between Logan's assertive demeanor and Jake's vulnerable condition underscored the brutal reality of facing an elite heavyweight. While Logan's behavior sparked discussion, fans and analysts largely agreed that the real focus remained on Jake's condition and the severe physical cost he paid inside the ring.
I say AJ fighting Logan Paul would be more of a mismatch than Jake Paul. You know what I mean? Because at least Jake Paul has taken boxing or has trained with real boxing trainers and real boxers. Whereas Logan Paul, you know, he did that exhibition with Floyd, and Floyd's a little guy. Not saying a little guy can't thump, because Floyd really gave him some two pieces with no sides, right? But at the same time, you take his friend, Floyd's friend, Anthony Joshua, and get hit by him and see what happens. The same thing. Probably worse, because I think Logan, you know, he's a little taller than Jake. And because he's a little taller than Jake, he may think he's a little stronger than Jake. Which I don't know which one's true or not. I don't think it makes a difference. But because he may feel that way, he may want to go in there and try to bang it out with AJ. And if that happens, it's going to be a lot quicker. See, that 6 rounds it took AJ to finally catch Jake. It took that way because Jake was on that bicycle, moving, being elusive, trying to come in and then come out. He tried to do a very poor man's Alexander Usyk, right? And it didn't work for him. Logan ain't gonna do that. Logan's gonna come in throwing punches and bunches like he did with Floyd, trying to get him in there and, you know, do all this stuff. And what's gonna happen as soon as AJ lines him up, sets his punch, he's gonna hit Jake and he's gonna break Jake down. He may break his jaw or face or orbital bone or something, nose. Something is going to be broken when it...
Chris Algieri and Paulie Malignaggi offered a no-nonsense assessment of Jake Paul's bout with Anthony Joshua, focusing on just how punishing the fight ultimately became. They pointed to the serious injuries Paul reportedly suffered, including multiple fractures to the jaw and dental damage, as evidence of the immense physical cost of facing a true elite heavyweight. Both analysts explained that Joshua's accuracy and power consistently closed off Paul's options, leaving him with limited space and exposing gaps in his defensive structure. Algieri and Malignaggi emphasized that the fight served as a sobering warning about the risks involved when a fighter steps into the ring against top-level competition without comparable experience. Their breakdown highlighted the harsh reality Paul endured and underscored the broader lesson about the dangers of mismatched, high-stakes encounters.
Right, yeah, Ngannou, he's got balls. Ngannou's got balls, man. He went out there and he tried to fight, he tried to win. Jake Paul didn't try to win at any point during the fight. He was just trying to survive. I think that's actually ultimately going to hurt him with boxing fans.
Yeah, what do you think, Paulie? I mean, you talked about the in-and-out kind of style, kind of hits and runs, and you said that, A, it runs out your legs. He was exhausted a couple rounds into the fight, and B, it only saved him for so long.
He doesn't have the boxing skills to box on the move anyway. Once I saw the big ring, I knew he was going to run for his life. When you're that much of a novice, which obviously it's not even an insult to him, it's just lack of experience. But when you're that much of a novice, you either know how to run for your life or fight all out. You don't have that in between yet. You haven't developed enough of that in between boxing acumen to really pull that off. And so what ends up happening? You're either going to fight your ass off and you'll last a minute. Chris, you're being generous. Round 2, he would have got knocked out in round 1 if he would have fought. But at least he would have fought. He would have got the respect of the people and more importantly, the boxing community instead of these clowns that follow him and are still defending him. You know, now what happens is you didn't get any respect as a fighter. You didn't get any respect as a fighter because you didn't try to fight at all. If he would have, I was watching that through 2-3 rounds. I'm thinking to myself, this guy would do this for 8 rounds if he can. If he can do this for 8 rounds, absolutely not fight at all, absolutely not engage a single time in 8 rounds, he will actually do this. And he'll do it shamelessly. And that's the problem. That's the problem. The shamelessness of his approach to the fight. You're gonna be a fighter, then don't make an ass out of the whole sport, out of the whole business, and out of yourself first and foremost. Because in the end, what happens? You got his jaw broke anyway. So what ends up happening? What's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna get hurt, you're gonna get knocked out? You got hurt and you got knocked out anyway, but you just prolonged the inevitable and you got no respect out of it now. There's nobody's respecting that kind of performance. Nobody's respecting a performance where you would totally content to steal money from everyone by running for your life for 8 rounds. And if you could have not engaged a single time in 8 rounds, that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to pull that off.
That wraps up today's video. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for what's next.